Hello YouTube, my name is Jayne of the jungle, and I've been reading books avidly my entire life as a form of escapism because I love experiencing stories. I've just been going to the library since a small child. My mom had us going every week, and I would take home a huge stack of books, as many as I can carry, and all of my life I've had a stack next to my bed. And just recently I've been getting really into booktubers, watching a bunch of YouTubers that talk about books, and I came to realize that I need to be a booktuber. What am I doing? So I'm going to start sharing with you all of the books that I've been reading, because I'm always reading books and now I have a way to share them and people who might care about what I'm reading, and I'm realizing that this might be my life's calling, to be a booktuber. So the first book I would like to share with you is one I just recently finished, and it's very on brand for me as Jayne of the Jungle. It's called Into the Jungle by Erica Forensic. And I really enjoyed this book. It is a fiction novel. It was about a young girl who is kind of like homeless, and she's really attracted to South America. She goes down there and she ends up meeting someone and falling in love, and she ends up going out to the jungle with him. And she is just this like redheaded American girl who ends up going into deep in the jungle with her man. And it's an amazing story. She shows really incredible resilience. Characters Lily and Omar in this book have a really beautiful relationship, and I very much enjoyed that. Also, Lily gets pregnant while she's there, and the hardships she deals with while she's pregnant in the jungle are insane. But I feel like this is a new classic favorite of mine. Highly recommend this one. I really loved it. It was very fast-paced for me, held me captured with my attention, which I appreciate. The next book I will share with you has no interesting cover. I'll place the cover here in the screen. This one is called The Stone Bull. This is one of those random books that I found, I think at a garage sale for like 25 cents. And it's from the 70s. It is basically a story about a woman who falls in love with a man. He like very quickly falls in love with her and invites her out to his family's like mountain ranch estate, which that sounds pretty dreamy to me. So she was all excited to have the situation happen. So she's like in love, goes with her man, and then she finds out that everybody at the hotel resort like recognizes her, or they all have like a secret, and she couldn't really figure out what that was. There's two sisters, they look alike, Jenny and Ariel. Ariel was like a famous ballerina, Jenny was her sister. So there's like some whole drama about her sister, and it's if you plan on reading this book, I would recommend it because it's a really fun like drama story, but I love the atmosphere of the mountain ranch home. And one of the characters is like this mountain man sculptor that she ends up going to meet on the mountain home property, and I really like that character. There's like a murder mystery kind of feel. There's a lot of like criminal, mysterious aspects to it, and a lot of like thrilling pace. So I enjoyed this book a lot as well. And I really liked the world of this book. I feel like it could have been like a whole series, and it's kind of sad that it's just one book. This one, The Midwifes Apprentice, is actually a young adult novel. But I enjoy these sometimes because they're very fast to get through, and sometimes if I want to feel accomplished and read something, I'll just read a young adult novel. And this one, I love medieval times, and when I went to read this book, I was craving medieval time stories, and this like was the perfect solution to what I was craving. I really enjoyed it because the character is very smart and really explains everything well about how life is in that time period. It's a pretty quick read, but it's really fleshed out. There's a lot of detail considering it's a little short young adult novel. The main character's name is Beetle, and she was named that because she was a young orphan who would find warmth in the garbage pile. So this girl had a very hard life, but then she started working for this midwife named Jayne, like me, but she was not like me because she was mean, and she was like really egotistical, and she was cruel. And so she started working for Jayne, and Jayne tried to keep her secrets from her, her midwifery secrets, but Dung Beetle, who ended up naming herself Alice because she decided to give herself a name so she could have some dignity, which I was so proud of her for. She ended up becoming a really good midwife by listening and being clever, and she ended up learning how to do the job better than Jayne because she had heart. She had empathy that Jayne was lacking. So I really liked this book. You know, if you don't feel like you'd be interested in a preteen protagonist, you might with this book. You might be surprised. It has an award for a reason. This book I picked up on the side of the road in a little free library. I'm a huge fan of little free libraries, and I drop books off at them as well, so don't think I'm just stealing from them. So this book was called Faye, and this one I have mixed feelings about it. So it was about this girl, her mom like sold her little brother for drugs, so it was a very bad situation. So she like ran away on foot at 17 years old because she was being sexually abused by her father. And then she ends up going on this adventure. I mean, she just leaves. She's just trying to find a better life. And she gets picked up by a bunch of different people because she's very attractive, apparently has a very rockin' body, so she gets a lot of attention from men and people in the world. And so she ends up having a really strange string of events that ends up getting her involved in a couple murders on accident. And I feel for her. She's really pretty smart and she's pretty sassy. She's a lot more like street smart and like tough than I am, so I admired that in her. But I also didn't like that the man who wrote the story is a man, and it's about the young girl, and I feel like he kind of, I don't know if it was just my opinion, but I feel like he kind of made it a little bit like a sexual fantasy. It had a tinge of not being a female voice and kind of objectifying and sexualizing this young girl instead of being like more of an emotional journey from the young girl's standpoint. I feel like there was a lack of emotional complexity in her character, even though she should have had a lot more going on. I don't know. So it kind of struck me strange, but it did have a good pace. It kept me rolling, which I really appreciate. I like books that keep it moving. I don't want to be bored. This one, Soiled Doves. I really liked this book for the content and the stuff that it, the information that it shared, but I did not really appreciate the voice of this Anne Seagraves woman. She used words like easy virtue and soiled doves often, and I really didn't appreciate that. I just felt like it was like she wasn't really having respect for the women and their struggle, and she did mention how these women never had the respect that they should have deserved because they were fulfilling an important role in that time period during like the gold rush. She just had certain annoying terminology that she used that felt very patriarchal and like sexist and kind of like just old-fashioned. Being a sexually liberated young woman in modern times, I didn't really appreciate the way that this was narrated about the women. It had a lot of great information, really good stories, and one of the characters from this book was actually one of the people they described and talk about in this book was actually, I read about her in this book as well, Lola Montez. She was a famous prostitute during the late 1800s, and she's also mentioned in this book, which I thought was cool. So I'll move on to this book in that instance, The Balloon Boy of San Francisco. This book is so rad, and I want to own it forever, and I want to read it like every couple of years because it's so fun. It's a really short little read about a young kid who's like a crazy entrepreneur kid. His name is Reddy Gates, and he's a redhead, and he's like all fiery and like wants to make money everywhere he goes. So he found out about this balloon landing thing that was going to be happening in Oakland, and it takes place in the Bay Area, which is where I live. So I really appreciated that that it was like about local history. I love local history. Anyway, so he goes to this event, and he ends up the balloon's like not taking off at this event. They're trying to sell oranges to make money, and then they need someone to go up in the balloon, and as a last minute decision, Reddy Gates decides to go up in the balloon. And it's such a cool story. It's a true story about how he traveled all the way up in the balloon all the way over to like toward Auburn, Placerville or something. So he went on this really long real balloon ride, and I think that this book was really cool. I loved it. I feel like this is an underrated, cool story that should be made into a movie or something. This book here is called Violet Bent Backwards Over the Grass, and this is by Lana Del Rey. It's her poetry book. I had to buy this because I am a Lana Del Rey fan despite her insanity. I was actually a huge fan for such a long time, but in recent years she's been making some strange decisions, and her music is going in a direction that feels a little like pick me, and I'm not really feeling that vibe anymore. I have confidence, I feel good about myself, and I don't really feel like I need to be like begging for love. No offense to Lana fans, I love you, I am you. But this book, I really enjoyed this book. It was highly anticipated for me. I ordered it, I was all excited. When I got it, I liked it, but I didn't love it. And so Lana is really good at creating imagery in your mind. She's very good at like painting a picture with her words. I feel like she's a wonderful poet. That being said, her poetry, she has a very narrow viewpoint. She's basically seeing the world from her viewpoint kind of only, it feels like, in my humble perspective. So I feel like she has a hard time being self-aware of how she sounds when she's saying certain things. This These pictures are the kind of photography that she has in her book, and I feel like they're boring. I want people, I want emotion. This is Traffic. The photographs, so it's like a poetry and photography book, and her photos that she chose for this book are like all like the worst outtakes in my phone, to be honest. They're like very boring. I'll give you an example. There's a house with lots of shadows, and there's an intersection. She really likes photos of like industrial, like still life, which is interesting. It doesn't make me feel any emotion. So anyway, the poems are pretty good. I don't know if I like the poems, I'll be honest with you. I like her, I like the way that she evokes emotion and puts you into a place emotionally with her. And I am a very emotional person, and I'm a Cancerian as well, and I emotionally resonate with her very much so. I don't really resonate that hard with some of the poetry. Then she told me, singleness of focus is the key to transmission, for an emphasis on developing inner intuition. Close your eyes and feel where you hold your attention. If it's in the back of your eyes, walk it down to your heart center, and make that the new place from which your thoughts enter. Clairvoyance comes mostly from this simple function. I'm not a huge poetry fan, I'll be honest, but I do appreciate some poetry, and some of these are good. I don't know. I honestly preferred the audiobook. The audiobook has like beautiful music in the background, and Lana narrates the poems, and they make much more sense listening to them. I feel like this would be fun if you wanted to like read along as you listen to the audiobook, and it'd be cool to like see it. I feel like it's worth seeing but not like owning, you know? Like I don't go back to this book and be like, oh, I want to go back into that world. It's kind of like, I read it once, I'm good forever. That's the truth. Okay, this one, Adventures of a Western Mystic, is about this man, Peter Mount Shasta. I was having a Mount Shasta moment where I was like being called to work with Mount Shasta, and this book was so amazing for me to pick up in that moment. This is about a man who, he basically starts a journey with Saint Germain in the forest. He goes out to the forest to meditate one day, and he meets Saint Germain, and Saint Germain basically tells him that from now on, we're on a journey together, and you're gonna need to follow my guidance. So he starts to follow the guidance of Saint Germain, and it comes at strange times. He'll just get like these little very subtle inklings and messages, and then he'll just need to act on them. And so his life kind of goes crazy because he'll just get these like inkling messages like, you need to go to the Las Vegas, and he'll be like, oh shit, I gotta leave this wedding I'm at and go to Las Vegas. Like he's very, very connected to his mystical journey, and it's a really cool story. It talks a lot about his manifestations and his very mystical journey, and I really enjoyed this book. I think Peter Mount Shasta is cool, and I would like to meet him one day. He's still alive, and Peter Mount Shasta, if you see this, I think your book is really rad, and I want to meet you. This book, Going Clear, is something that I should never read because it's looking into L. Ron Hubbard, which I'm not supposed to do, but here's what I do. I am a researcher, and in my life I look things up, and I just want to learn about everything. I just want to look at the truth. I'm not necessarily going to say anything bad about that religion or about the church, because the church makes some people really happy. So this is just something that I needed to look into for my own personal healing in my life journey, and this was incredible. I can't recommend it higher. It was so good. If you have any interest in Scientology or L. Ron Hubbard, this is the most thorough job that anyone could have put together. Lawrence Wright absolutely killed it. I watched his interviews on YouTube after reading this book, and I'm so impressed with that man. He like has done deep dive into investigative journalism into like Al-Qaeda and all kinds of different cults. Like even one of his projects would maybe take my entire lifetime to try to fulfill, and he's done multiple projects that have been very effective at painting a picture of these secret societies and cults, and this book is really important. I loved it. I burned through it. It was so important, and this is what led me to picking up this book, Sex and Rockets, The Occult World of Jack Parsons. What I found out through this book is that L. Ron Hubbard was friends with a man named Jack Parsons, who was a one of the like grandfathers of rocket science. He basically was the first person to create like jet propulsion technology that would create rockets. And at the time that he was doing this, or at the time that Jack Parsons was doing this, this was the time when rockets were just something that were inside of science fiction books. So anyone who thought that they could actually make a rocket was considered like insane, like fringe, weirdo people. So the fact that he actually went forth and was creating this technology was really, he was a pioneer. He also was involved in the occult, though. He was a student of Aleister Crowley, and him and L. Ron Hubbard used to do sex rituals together with this woman named Sarah Northrop, who was first Jack's girlfriend, and then he lived like a polyamorous life, and L. Ron Hubbard came in and stole his girl. And then L. Ron Hubbard came in and they made money off of their rocket science deal. Like, as they started to get better and they started to gain funds, they made more money, and Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard went into business together, and they decided to do this like boat chartering business. They wanted to buy yachts and like rent them out. So Jack Parsons gave L. Ron Hubbard his money, and so L. Ron Hubbard and Sarah Northrop took off with Jack Parsons' money to Florida to go buy these ships. And then they never came through with their part of the bargain for him. They just took off with his money. So L. Ron Hubbard totally swindled Jack Parsons, and it actually was really sad because he died really young. He died at 37 years old, which I'm 37. He died from like just being careless with, I guess, his explosives. He accidentally dropped an explosive and blew up the whole building, and I guess he was really good at what he did, but I guess he was slightly careless at times. But I guess even one small mistake is enough. So he died, but the sad thing is that his teacher, Aleister Crowley, like kind of like talked shit about him after his death, saying that like it's too bad, but he was naive, he was taken advantage by that confidence man Hubbard. So I felt so bad for Jack, even though he was involved in the occult and he did have sex with his mom. Despite that fact, they had some rituals where they would have these huge orgies where they would manifest using the sexual energy of orgies, which I actually I've done a bit of studying in like sexual transmutation and other like exercises, like, you know, tantra, and so I understand where he's going with this, and but yeah, I guess there's video footage of him sleeping with his mom. So she killed herself right after he died. Like, she ate a bunch of sleeping pills like 2 days later or something. So this is a strange story and book, and I don't know if I recommend it. If you're interested in this topic, it is very interesting, that's for sure. And strangely, even though they talk about a lot of like dark and weird things, it didn't like make me feel like weird or shitty. They didn't make it creepy. I don't know. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed my book review. I'm going to be definitely sharing with you more books that I'm reading, because I'm constantly reading a ton of books, and I'm realizing now that I should be sharing them with you on YouTube, because now we can have a book club. I hope you have a wonderful day and that you enjoyed this video of me sharing the books that I love, and thank you for taking the time to check out my video. I hope you have a great day. Mwah.
I know that last book was sort of a strange note to end on, so here's a baby deer for a palate cleanser. I hope your day is glorious and that you're inspired to read.